Jim was sitting on the chair beside the bed, his body twisted sideways so he could rest his head on Penny's belly. "If you hadn't pulled through," he said, "what would have happened?" "It was gallstones, not open heart surgery," Penny groaned. "Now shift your head, you're lying on my wounds." "Aye, but all the same, I would have been a bit upset," said Jim. Penny's breath caught in her throat as Jim raised his head and took her hand, kissing it gently before laying it back on the blanket. For a few seconds he gazed at his mother's ring, which now adorned the third finger of Penny's left hand. "Just a bit?" she asked, her pinky reaching out to touch his. "Maybe more. I mean, firstly and most importantly, who would make my tea? And secondly, it would take me a while to replace you. There aren't that many single women on the island. Marie Knox or Dirty Dolores are the only two that spring to mind." Despite feeling sore, tired, and slightly nauseous, Penny couldn't stifle a short guffaw. "Dolores smells a lot better since Fiona took her in hand," she reminded him. "Also, you can't have Marie Knox. Minky Wallace split up with Grant Hay last month and has been making moves in her direction. So unless you really want to be in a love triangle with Minky..." Jim's grimace quickly melted into a tender smile, and he bent his lips to her hand again. "Oh, well, I suppose I'll just have to make do with you then. If you could not die, that would be grand." Penny had lost count of the number of times they had said this to one another. 20 years she'd lived in London and hadn't seen so much as a mugging. Yet since moving back home to the quiet, peaceful confines of Vik, there had been approximately 11 million murders, most of which had precipitated either her or Jim being injured. However, this time it was the Golden Stones, as her mother called them on account of the fact that Penny had developed jaundice. "Don't stand there next to your father's shed," Mary had pleaded, gesturing towards the kitchen window through which could be seen the results of boundless enthusiasm and a pilfered tin of yellow road paint. "We'll never find you." Penny had been quite relieved when she woke up post-op and was told that Jim was here. Doc Harris had been by to check in on her first, though. It was the sort of thing that, as a GP, he didn't need to do, but he did anyway. "A few years ago, you'd have had to go to the mainland even for a procedure as straightforward as this," he told her, removing his spectacles and polishing them on the crisp cotton bedsheet. "As it is, you'll be back in your own bed tomorrow and back to normal in a couple of weeks. You had a fair puckle of stones in there. Would you like to see?" He rooted around in the pocket of his tweed jacket and produced a small, clear jar containing some shriveled red sack and some yellow pebbles. Penny felt a spike of saliva at the back of her tongue as a wave of nausea hit. "Why?" she asked weakly. "Would you want to keep them?" "They're very interesting, and your mother asked for them. Apparently she keeps everything of yours. First teeth, first haircut, and now..." Here the doc had mimicked a small drum roll, setting the gallbladder and pebbles rattling and slithering in the jar. "First body parts."